Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, February the 8th. Welcome to the joint meeting between the Charles County Board of Education and our Charles County Commissioners to discuss the implications of the blueprint for Maryland schools. It's great to be with you all today. If we could, I'd just like to start off with some introductions. My name is Mike Lucas, and I'm the Chairman of the Board of Education of Charles County.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tina Wilson. I'm the Vice Chairman.
Jennifer Abel, Board Member, Board of Education.
Elizabeth Brown, Board Member.
And Mr. Hancock is on his way. He said he'd be late.
Virginia McGraw, Board Member.
Ian Hurd, Student Member.
Good morning, Kevin Lowndes, Deputy Superintendent. I would also like to extend a warm welcome from Dr. Navarro. I know she really wanted to be here today and was looking forward to this meeting. Unfortunately, she had to be out of town for a personal family matter, but she does welcome everybody and extends her thank you for coming and participating in today's meeting.
Karen Acton, Assistant Superintendent of Fiscal Services.
Good morning. My name is Chris Miller. I am your Blueprint Implementation Coordinator.
Mark Belton, the Charles County Administrator. Gilbert Bowling, County Commissioner, District 1.
Amanda Stewart, County Commissioner, District 30. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Thomasina Coates, Charles County Commissioner, District 2.
Good morning, Bobby Lucci, District 4.
And last but not least, Commissioner President Reuben Collins.
Commissioners and board members, thank you very much for being here today. And Ms. Battle Alcart, you want to say good morning?
Good morning.
It's all good. Again, I just want to thank everyone for being here. I appreciate the opportunity to work together and to look at the impacts of the blueprint. And with that, we can get started. Ms. Miller, Ms. Acton, who's going to
Mr. Lucas, before you got started, I
Yes.
had a couple of remarks to kind of start off.
I'm sorry,
Okay
Mr.
with
Collins,
that?
please.
First off, I want to thank you for this opportunity. The county is proud of its consistent support of our public schools over and above maintenance of effort, even during the recession of 2009. The county's financial support of Charles County Public Schools is forecasted to increase exponentially under Kerwin. We can all agree it is a big ask, and we are embarking on new, uncharted territory. With such a large financial commitment invested in Kerwin, it's imperative that we work jointly to cut costs in other areas. FY 2023 will set the foundation for our county as we fund future public schools. Similar to maintenance of effort and the Thornton plan that changed the game, the blueprint will have the same impact. I brought up the concept of duplication of services in the past. As we face the implications of Kerwin, now is the time for us to seriously explore where we can eliminate duplications and potentially combine functions and save operational costs. Again, I've talked about this in the past, and I'm asking both of our financial staffs to consider as we move forward, looking at where there may be duplications of services and where we can actually find opportunities to cut costs as we move forward. At the end of the day, we are setting the foundation for the future. And this budget that we're beginning with in 2023 will be impactful for all future budgets. It's a great opportunity for us to do this the right way and take advantage of this opportunity. We must be honest and transparent with each other as well. This joint meeting is the first step. In the past, the subject of fund balance has not been adequately addressed. If you have resources to dedicate towards funding Kerwin, We need to take a critical look and see where we can work together to meet the requirements of this legislation. We must also think outside the box and be unafraid to do things differently from the old way. As many of you know, the county is actually looking at the feasibility of creating a revenue authority, which has the potential of creating more resources for public education and other services in our community. I do not see this meeting as a one-and-done meeting, and we cannot stop where we are right now. This is the start of an open and extended dialogue that will help us align our financial resources in a way that will benefit our county as a whole. And so again, I want to thank you, Board of Education, for providing this opportunity for us. I really view what we're starting right now as critical to the future of how we actually fund public education. So thank you for your indulgence. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Collins. And as you said, Kerwin is transformational, it's mandated, and we look forward to being able to provide increased opportunity for all our students. And we're here today to talk about the implications of the blueprint, and we're certainly willing to talk about anything when we submit our budget, which does show the elimination of quite a few positions that were in the system. So we're taking that very seriously and doing everything we can to make sure that we have the resources to meet Kerwin. So with that, Ms. Acton, thank you.
Thank you. And as Commissioner Collins said, we definitely will need to have more meetings. What I hope to share today is what we know, but there's still so much that's unknown that today would not be one and done for sure. We need to set up some more meetings as more information becomes available. So we'll give Shelley a second to try to get the presentation up on the screen, and we'll get going. Okay, next slide, please. So the blueprint has, as we've mentioned before, 5 policy areas. Early childhood education is area 1, high quality and diverse leaders 2, college and career ready 3, more resources to ensure all students are successful, and policy area 5 is governance and accountability. Today we're going to focus on policy area 1, 2, and 3, which has the most impact on the next fiscal year. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So with early childhood education expansion, this is focused on our full-day pre-kindergarten to qualifying students. It also, the blueprint is allowing and actually requiring private community providers to partner with us, and we are required to have 30%. And at this point right now, we don't know how many providers will qualify. There's certain criteria that they have to meet to be partners with us. So the impact on the school system for next year is that Tier 1 4-year-olds with a family income less than or equal to 300% are required to have full-day pre-kindergarten. So Tier 1 for a family of 4 was $49,025, and it will be $79,500 for a family of 4, which of course is going to increase the number of children that are eligible for the Tier 1. Also to keep in mind is that in school year 25-26, we do have to allow the 3-year-olds into pre-K that are in Tier 1. So this is going to continue, the enrollment for the school is going to continue to grow even past this year. Next slide, please. So the funding implications for the early childhood, there, as I mentioned, there will be an increase in eligibility of Tier 1 4-year-olds that must receive full-day pre-K. And then Tier 1 and Tier 2 in fiscal year 25, and Tier 1 3-year-olds in fiscal year 26. For the next school year, we are converting our 7 half-day pre-K classes to full day, so that we will have full day in pre-K in all of our schools. The side effect of that is that in the schools where we had 2 half-day, we will not be able to accept as many kids. Obviously, that cuts down on the number of kids that can go in, because now we have 1 teacher and one class for the kids. The pre-K has to be 20-to-1, so for every 20 students, we have to have 1 class and 1 teacher. The increase in space requirements to accommodate all of this is a concern that we have. We believe we have it addressed for the next fiscal year, but there's still the unknown of how many kids are going to qualify. We don't have the income information to know for sure. So to give you some idea, we currently have 963 students enrolled in pre-K, and 403 are Tier 1. But as I mentioned, that Tier 1 is expanding. So it remains to be seen how many students we're going to end up having to accommodate.
I'm sorry, is that going to affect next year?
Yes.
So will that include private partners that will be able to provide services as well? So if our schools get overcrowded, then you could reach out to private providers to provide that service?
They have to, there's a certification process, a qualification process that they have to go through with the state. But if they are, if they meet the standards, then yes, they would be an option for us. That number is 30% for next year, and it increases to 50% in future years. That
facilities and manpower as far as the personnel that they would
right.
be outsourced.
Right.
And so they wouldn't fall under the same, I guess, because when I'm thinking of is school construction, they wouldn't fall under the same parameters for school construction. So there would be a private entity with a private building that these young people would be going into.
Right, that wouldn't affect our funding at all. They would receive their funding from the state, and they would have the facilities to handle however many students.
So with that funding, it wouldn't come through the local school board to them, it would come
No.
directly from the state to them?
Correct.
And does that need to be matched by the county, that funding that goes directly?
No. So it's in our best interest as a county to encourage the private, community providers to invest what they need to qualify. And that would certainly be a big help to us if we have.
Would that reduce the numbers for the students in the school system as far as what counts towards per student funding? Or no?
Yes and no. So we get separate funding for pre-K. So the normal funding doesn't count pre-K. So it's kindergarten, through 12 for the regular funding. There's separate funding for pre-K. So it does affect it, but at the same time, if we don't have the facility to be able to handle all the children, and we have to be able to, it's in our best interest to cultivate those community providers.
And I think if parents would have the option of which
Yes.
to provide, and the next question is going to come out of my mouth is, if it's starting pre-K, is this something that's going to expand into the higher levels of grades? Because if this is going to have an impact on pre-K, it's going to have, will it have an impact on higher levels?
Meaning, would our enrollment increase for kindergarten through 12, or are you asking, I'm not sure I understand.
What I'm asking is if we're allowing students to be sent to the private sector to be educated K or third, that 3-year-old class, are we going to start as a state
No.
to allow them 3 and older to be out to the private sector?
No. And there's no funding definitely coming from the state for anything other than pre-K, so I don't see that.
Yeah, Ms. Acton, and if I could tag on to that, right now, when we receive this information in public, there are very few licensed providers currently that would meet the requirements in order to facilitate pre-K in their facilities. I see Ms. Miller shaking her head. So there aren't many in the county that can do it as we speak.
So far, we don't have any that, they're going through the process. We don't know how many, but at this point, we have 0. But there is a cost for them, so it may not be, it's hard to know if it's going to be in their best interest, because the funding coming from the state, if it doesn't give them the additional dollars and above some for them to make those changes in their program, they may not choose to do that.
And part of the reason I ask that is because, as far as county government is concerned, if we're having people that are wanting to provide provide this service, I look at the permits and stuff coming through the county, that are we going to see an influx of those permits coming through where people want to, turn some commercial space into what you're speaking of? And I think that's important as we move forward to make sure we know that those people are identified, to make sure we can do the process. If we have to expedite some way. I don't know how Mr. Belton feels about it, but that's something to think about as we move forward.
And I think one of the things that, based on the requirements of 30% of our students need to be in these private pre-Ks, and right now very few of them qualifying, we're looking at ways to how to help and support them to get some of their teachers to be credentialed and their aides to be certified, because that's one of the things that we're going to have to do as well, is make sure that we hit a certification level for all of our aides within our pre-K classes. The funding will cover the 6 hours of the school day that they will receive from the state, but many of our pre-Ks are open much longer with before care and after care, and so they still would be able to charge for that portion of their day. And so I think, many of them are trying to figure out a business model and how it would work and what it looks like.
I just see a significant increase in people wanting to get into this type of business, and it's going to put a significant, amount of work on planning group. And they're going to want to get these facilities up and through and ready to run. So it's just one aspect for us.
And everyone, Mr. Bowling, if you could, make sure you're speaking close to the microphone. Folks attending virtually having a little hard time hearing everybody.
I'll lean into the mic next time.
Perfect. Thank you.
So the final thought on the facilities is that we are, as I mentioned, we are going to be converting our 7 half-day to full day. We are looking at existing space to maximize our classroom utilization. We're also looking at the transition school to use that possibly as pre-K facility in the future once construction projects allow that. And then, if needed, we'll explore external facilities if we need to be able to accommodate the students. Next slide, please. So as Mr. Lowndes mentioned, there is requirements, certification requirements for our instructional assistants. We have approximately 60 that will need to be certified at a cost of approximately $60,000 and recertified every 3 years at approximately $20,000. We are looking to partner with CSM and other universities to help staff meet this requirement. They can also pursue an AA degree, which meets the requirements, but we will need to bring our instructional assistants up to this requirement. Next slide, please. Before we go on to Policy Area 2, are there any other questions on Policy Area 1 that we haven't talked about?
I think you'll probably get to it, but one of the things I understand with the blueprint is there is some type of mechanism that kind of assess where you are. And I think a lot of the questions that we have are probably related to how are you able to ensure that, these things that are required, and you're kind of mentioning just in terms of where we are just dealing with the pre-K and those providers. When those assessments are done, how does that impact the overall process? And particularly funding, because it's partially based on being able to reach these goals, correct?
Well, it's a requirement, so there's certainly not a choice. We need to be able to meet those requirements. But the funding that we are receiving, at least currently in year 1, is assuming that we are meeting those requirements. So there's no, at this point, there's no concern with that. But you're right, as we keep moving through and discover more about the blueprint, we're assessing, are we meeting that requirement? And if we're not meeting that requirement, what do we need to do to meet it? So for instance, on the pre-K expansion, that went into the decision-making to convert the half-day to full day, just go ahead and do all 7. We were doing it incrementally as a school system, but so that we have enough full day pre-Ks, we went ahead and said we need to do that for this next school year. There is definitely an unknown about how many children are going to apply or enroll, basically, and how many are going to meet the requirement for Tier 1. We'll have better information moving forward, but for this first year, our thought process was that, if we currently have 963 students in the four-year program, the unknown also is how many parents will want to keep their children where they are because of daycare issues. They may not all come into the school system right away. They may come in future years once the program is more well-known. But if we have 963 right now, and 400 of them are Tier 1, we know Tier 1 is expanding. So if that were to double, and we have 800, we know we can accommodate 963 students. If you take off 140 for the fact that we had some half-day, that would be 820. So we should be able to accommodate. For this first year, we are, depending on enrollment, would not be accepting Tier 2 and Tier 3, which we don't have to accept at this point. We're just going to go with the requirement, which is Tier 1. So, there definitely is a lot of unknown, but as we get more information, we are reassessing and determining what we need to do to make sure that we can accommodate. In a worst-case situation, if the pre-K enrollment is much higher than what we're expecting, then we may have to make some other decisions on the portables. We wouldn't put pre-K out there, but we may have to move some others out there if indeed it is that much. We are also, in conjunction with that, we have an ongoing analysis that we're doing on class size in the schools. So we are, if there are some smaller class sizes in certain schools, we may combine those, and then that would allow another room for pre-K. So we are looking at the total picture of enrollment and class size in each school, and not just looking at pre-K. And we think with all of that, we should be able to accommodate the kids that will be enrolling.
And I think you're right, we need to look at some of our processes to get a better idea of how this will roll out and the impact it's going to have. And one of the processes we're changing next year for pre-K is we're going to ask all families to submit some financial statements, because in the past, we've only asked families that have qualified for Tier 1, which has then made it more difficult for next year to try to predict out of those, that other 50% of the students that are in our pre-K this year, how many of them would qualify next year with that percentage of going up from 180 to 300%. And so by collecting all of the financials with people that want to go into our pre-K, we'll have a better indication of where those numbers will be in the future. The other thing is to prepare for the partnership and strong partnership with our private pre-K. We do have a couple information nights set up where we've invited private pre-Ks to come in and learn about the blueprint and learn about the qualifications to qualify for the state money with the private daycare. We're hoping we'll have quite a few that want to join us, and they'll show up for those information nights to learn more about it.
And I want to apologize, Ms. Acton, but I hope you can appreciate for the Board of Commissioners. I mean, we want to fully understand this, and we're coming to the table as partners, and so we want to be of assistance. And so, if you can, we want to kind of allow you to go through the actual presentation, but I can assure you there's going to be plenty of questions.
And we appreciate that. And we also want to partner with the county. We know that this is a big lift for us and for the county, and we need to work together to be able to ensure that we can do this. So we appreciate the questions, and we'll try to share as much as we can. I still feel like there is a lot that's unknown, and that's frustrating to me, but I can assure you that we continually are reaching out to MSDE to try to get clarification. It's not coming fast enough for us. Also with the
Zach, could you pull the mic just a little closer, please?
Sure.
So people first looking here, and Ms. Wilson had a question.
I had really a comment. The other aspect, as we talk about, this is a very fluid situation and a very evolving situation, and I'm sure the staff is going to cover it with regard to assessing the situation, and as the staff is doing that, somewhere in the presentation, I'm sure you're going to talk about the accountability board and their oversight. So there's going to be a degree of oversight from the state and reporting requirements. So just as you are asking questions to ensure that we are efficiently and effectively executing this new policy, there's going to be an agency that's going to have oversight of that. So there's going to be a lot of eyes on this as we evolve. Thank you.
Okay, next slide, please. So policy area 2 is the high quality and diverse teachers and leaders. In July 1, 2024, we have to develop a career ladder for teachers. And as part of the requirement, there are also teaching limits on teaching time to allow for planning. So there is a potential need for increase in staff to meet that teaching time. There are also requirements for vice principals and principals for teaching as well. So we are working on that now in our committees. The minimum teaching salary of $60,000 has to be in effect for a starting teacher by July 1, 2026. And this will be approximately $66 million over the next 5 years that we will need to address in our budgets. In addition to that, our teacher salary increases, there's a 10% requirement above the negotiated salary increases between July 1, 2019 and June 30, 2024. We currently have given 4.5%, so we will need to, in the next 2 years, give the additional 5.5% to get to the 10%, and that will cost about $24 million for us to achieve that. Next slide, please. In addition, sure.
Talk to that 10% above the negotiated salary increases. So you must be assuming certain levels of salary increases to come up with a number like that.
That's a very good question, and we've had a lot of question about that. What we've been told is that if you have a multi-year contract that says, with your union, that says you're going to give whatever one level and 3%, it has to be above that. But since we have not done a multi-year contract, it's the COLAs that we're giving. So what they've told us is to start with our salary scale for 2019 and compare it to what we have now, and what that increase is, that percentage is what we get credit for. There is still somewhat of a cloud over that because it isn't definitive, because as you see here, that's saying above everything that we give is negotiated. So if it has to be above that, that would be a real problem. But
Ultimately, you're going to have to assume some levels of.
Yes.
But when you make public assumed
Correct.
levels of increases,
So how do you
it
do that,
becomes
right?
what happens.
Exactly. So our guidance at this point is what I said, which is that we take where we started and where we are now, since we don't have a multi-year contract, and that increases the 4.5 that we're at right now.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Starting this July, we are required to give National Board Certified Teachers additional salary, which is put into their base. It's not a stipend, so it will affect retirement as well. We currently have 32 NBC certified staff, so each teacher who is teaching in front of students would receive $10,000 extra. If they're teaching in a low-performing school, they would get an additional $7,000. If they become a lead teacher, they would receive an additional $5,000. And if they become a distinguished teacher, it's additional $10,000. And then if they become a professor, distinguished teachers, it's an additional $15,000. And the NBC teacher that becomes a distinguished principal gets an additional $15,000. So this is all cumulative, and it's on their base.
So I have a question. So I agree with it. I guess a question is, what are you finding as far as retention and attraction of teachers? Is it just the money, or are there other aspects of the profession that are going to be impacted? I mean, I'm thinking school safety. What's coming right to my head. is the money going to be enough? Because when I'm looking at this is going to be implemented across the state, there's going to be a certain level across the state, and what's going to distinguish Charles County that people are going to want to come here and teach opposed to, say, our sister counties or even Howard or anywhere else?
I think it's a combination of, the professional development that counties offer once you come here, the support that the county offers for new teachers and for veteran teachers as to what they can get extra, as far as the help and support from the school system and from mentor teachers. But you're right. I mean, we're all competing right now for a really small pot of people looking to get into the teaching profession. And so it's going to have to be, if we're all going to be starting off at the same level, something else that's going to have to distinguish us when we go out there and recruit teachers. I mean, currently this year, because the state of Maryland is putting out so few graduates that want to go into teaching, our Human Resources Department has to go out and expand their recruitment to other states that we haven't been to before to try to attract folks to come here. And, we talk about the quality of life here in Charles County and how affordable it is and how the great things that we have to offer, not only as a school system, but as a county. And once again, we really need to partner up in selling folks to Charles County to come here and teach.
And the other concern with that, as I participate with the other CFOs in the state, other jurisdictions will most likely not be right at the 60. Some of them are going to be higher than that. So, that is something that we have to think about and be prepared for as we develop these career ladders.
I say that just because, from a county perspective, housing comes right to, and not just, quality housing.
Right.
Not just, I don't want to say cheap, but not just low,
Affordable.
But, quality where people can feel safe. And, because you have some teachers that are living 3-4 like a college dorm, and that's what comes into mind for me, that trying to just attract them and keep them, because reality is we're losing people, and I'm just trying to help, that's all.
No,
I'm just
that's
asking
great.
what we can do as a county.
Next slide, please. So policy area 3 is college and career ready pathways. Next slide, please. So students who are college and career ready by the end of 10th grade, we have to provide college prep programs for them, dual enrollment opportunities for them, and CTE programs and apprenticeships. Also, students who are not college and career ready by the end of 10th grade, we must provide alternative coursework and supports to get students on track and individualized instructional plans for those students. Next slide, please. So in our next fiscal year, we are increasing our dual enrollment program with CSM. So we are offering to 150 seniors at 4 high schools at a cost of about $695,000. To meet this requirement, though, we will need to expand to all 7 high schools for juniors and seniors, and we're estimating at this time about approximately 600 students would participate at a cost of about $2.8 million. Also, we will need to fund AP assessments beginning in school year 23-24, an estimate of about $200,000 to $250,000. CCPS is also partnering with equal opportunity schools to help expand access for rigorous coursework for historically underrepresented populations. Next slide, please. So this slide is showing the state funding that we have been provided this year. And I wanted to talk about it a little bit because as we got additional funding in certain areas, other funding areas decreased. So, for instance, on the net foundation program funding, it would look as if we received $15 million, but there are other areas that zeroed out or were lower. So our actual funding is $9 million, about 7%. The same thing happens with special ed. It looks as if you would have a $3 million increase, but we actually lost a funding source of 2.2 million, so our increase is 779,000, which is about 7%. Same thing happens with transportation. So our actual funding increase is 866,000, about 7%. So our total state funding is 9%. To remind everyone that as our county wealth per pupil increases, state funding goes down and county funding goes up. And this funding that we have right here at this point in time, for instance, we don't, even on Kerwin, and where they say that we're going to get full funding for all these different parts, the concern is that that doesn't always translate properly. For instance, when you look at the career ladder, which is $205,359, which should be our NBC teachers and our low-performing schools, we have 32, as I said, and if you take out 10 that are not in front of students, we should have been funded for 22, and we've only been funded for 15. So, that's always the ongoing concern with the state, is how they determine what we're getting based on what we know to be the situation. Next slide, please. So this slide shows for this next fiscal year where the shortfall is. I mentioned the NBC teachers and also the increase to reach the $60,000 starting salary for beginning teachers. That's only the beginning teachers in that number, what we would need to increase. We have funding of $205,000 for the career ladder at this time, which leaves that particular analysis short $393,000 roughly. And then the bottom part of the slide shows what is necessary for us to do to have equity in our school system. $110,000 for NBC payouts, the pay scales $3.3 million. In order to meet some of the requirements of the blueprint, we need the additional staffing that we've asked for, which is an English language learner specialist, a bilingual outreach facilitator, half a person, mental health coordinator, 1, and 4.5 behavioral support counselors. So the total impact of funding shortage for Blueprint for this next fiscal year is $4.6 million.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
You made a statement that if, I guess, the per capita income goes up, that the amount of state-provided funding decreases and the county's contribution increases, correct?
So part of all of the funding formulas is a wealth component.
Okay.
So as the wealth in the county increases in comparison to other jurisdictions, it is relative depending on the other jurisdictions, then that is what would happen, is the state would decrease funding and the county would have to pick up more.
So my question to that is, what's the metric they're using to determine that? Is it something in the school system that's using it as
No,
far
it's your taxable, base for the county.
I guess what I'm getting is, are you seeing a pattern in the school system where there's more underserved folks that are moving into the community that are providing more services through the school system that's going to cost us more?
Well, that is what we're seeing. We are seeing that we are having to provide that, but the county wealth is also increasing. So
there's a gap, a bigger gap.
Yes, there potentially could be, for sure.
So I guess what I'm playing out in my head is there's going to be increased need based on the students moving into the school system, which is going to be increased costs. But according to the overall wealth of the county, our contributions are going to increase, but the state's going to contribute less. I think I see a little bit of a challenge there, and maybe is it a conversation needs to be had with the state to try to figure out how that works, or is it just kind of in law, this is how it has to be? Because you see where I'm coming from, where I'm saying, they're saying that our median income is higher, but for the school system is concerned, we're getting a lot more children that are needing more services, so the amount of money that we're going to need to put into the school system is going to increase naturally. And it's
Mr. Bowling, if I could, so one of the, not one of, but if you could summarize Kerwin, right, it's about providing those services to groups of people that have been historically underserved.
Correct.
And you can go back decades and look at Thornton, and there was a direct correlation between student success and the funding that went to Thornton. And when the funding stopped, then student performance decreased.
No, I get that.
So I think what you're saying is correct, that as we grow as a county, the needs of the student population are also growing.
Right.
And if you look, yes, the county wealth has grown, but just getting a per pupil cost doesn't cover the services that a lot of these underserved students.
That's what I'm getting at,
Yeah,
Mr.
I mean,
Lucas.
that has been the case for a lot of things, even prior. That's our normal meeting time. So that's been the case historically, not just for us, but for other school systems. And again, that's what Kerwin addresses, and it does put an onus on each LEA and in each county that supports the school system budget.
No, and I guess that's what I'm bringing to the attention of everybody as we're sitting here, is if Charles County is bringing in a lot of children, increasing in population of children that need more services, that's going to be an increase on funding that's needed to be right, and not the state level, but the local level, which comes into our tax dollars. So that's where I'm getting at, that we need to be prepared for this. If our population of our students is increasing the need, then we're going to have to increase the amount of money that's pumped into the school system from the local level, not from the state, because of the wealth gap. So that's what I'm kind of putting on the table for everybody to hear, that this is what needs to be known to everyone. So.
And I think that the thing that's confusing to many people is the fact that it's comparable to other LEAs. So, you know, if other areas are not growing as fast or don't have the wealth coming in, they, you know, even if maybe our overall wealth base might have dropped a little, and I'm not saying maybe in the future or something, if we still have dropped less than everyone else in the state, our wealth index would still go up. And that's what people need to understand. It's really comparable to everyone in the state as to how the funding is given in the wealth index.
Thanks for letting me try to figure that out and explain it to the people that are listening, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, next slide, please. As we mentioned in the beginning, we do have steering committees with representation for various stakeholder groups, including the county, to go through these different policy areas and to work out the details and assess where we are and what needs to happen, and that will continue. Dr. Navarro will be providing monthly updates so that the commissioners are aware of what's happening, and we will schedule presentations with updates at public meetings and sessions for various stakeholder groups as more information becomes available. Next slide, please. So what we would like to propose is joint work sessions between the Board of Education and the Charles County Commissioners twice a year at a minimum to discuss the funding and programmatic implications and the trends and implementation deadlines, especially as more information becomes available. We definitely would like to have more work sessions so that we can share that information and work out solutions together. So one thing that I want to mention, and then I did not prepare anything for policy area 3, so I'm going to ask Chris Miller to talk about it in just a second, just to give a little bit of update since Ms. Wilson talked about the accountability board. But what I want to mention is that the funding, the state has not been completely clear on how they have come up with all of the funding. For instance, on pre-kindergarten, they don't know any more than we know how many pre-kindergarten children we're going to have. So the funding in future years could be different. They had to make a decision, just as we're making a decision. So they did, based on previous year's enrollment, but that may not be accurate. So it's fluid. This information is changing continually, and we're staying connected so that we can provide that information to everybody once it becomes available as things change. So Chris, could I ask you to speak a little bit about the accountability board?
So, as Ms. Wilson mentioned, there is an accountability and implementation board that is separate from the State Board of Education. And that board is required to make sure that all of the local school systems are implementing the blueprint with fidelity. As you know, the blueprint requires there to be a person that is a liaison between the Board of Education and the county government, which is my role. And I oversee the steering committees to ensure that we're getting various stakeholder input as well. So what the Accountability and Implementation Board is going to do is they're going to hire expert review teams. And these expert review teams will go and visit public schools. They'll be comprised of current teachers and educators, principals, central office staff, and they will be required to go to schools to see how the blueprint is being implemented. And we talk about this idea of creating habits. So we need to ensure that this blueprint isn't just checking a box. It's not just about compliance. It's really about changing what we do in education to increase student outcomes. So the Accountability and Implementation Board just hired their executive director, Miss Rachel Heiss, who was a foundational member with the Kerwin legislation. So we hope to get more clarification from the Accountability and Implementation Board because, as Ms. Acton said, there are a lot of unknowns. And so they met yesterday. They're meeting again yesterday. Their meetings are public unless they go into closed session. We continue to get updates from them, but we are going to rely on a lot of their interpretation of what the law is stating when it comes to some questions that we still have. And to add, if an expert review team comes into a school and comes into a school system and determines that we aren't improving what we do, that we're not making gains with student achievement, that we're not implementing the blueprint plan as we say we're going to do, we risk losing state funding. We can lose up to 25% of our state funding until we are in compliance with our plan. So they are very serious about how we implement, and really, again, as I've said from the beginning, it's about creating better habits. It's not about compliance.
That concludes my presentation. There's an appendix that has definitions of our state funding that you can refer to if you have any questions, but I'll be glad to answer any other questions that anyone has.
Yeah, just want to make sure our commissioners virtually too, if they have any questions.
No, I don't have any. Thank you so much. Great presentation.
Good morning, everyone. This is Commissioner Stewart. I do have a question. As we move forward with the additional stipends for teachers for national board certification, and we know, as you've already previously stated, that we're having a decline across the state and the nation to get teachers. What type of professional development activities will you be including in your budgeting to entice or to attract teachers? Can we focus on professional development on social emotional learning, PBIS, restorative practices? Is there any conversations being had about how we're going to attract teachers by really building a portfolio of how we're going to support teachers professionally in their development? Thank you.
Plan in place where we are looking at how to provide professional development in a really organized and synced way for new teachers that come in and teachers that are currently here to help them become nationally board certified. And so it's not only the teachers, but it's our IAs as well that are going to need some help and support, because the criteria for them and the certification for them is also increasing with the blueprint. So there is a team that's coming together to look at what is it that we need to do as a school system to provide the support to help people become nationally board certified as a teacher, and also to move up the career ladder and support them in that way. But as far as the social emotional learning, we do have and have put in things in place because of the pandemic and the needs of our staff and our students. for more social emotional opportunities and learnings that we have put in things in place this year and are looking to continue to add on next year as well.
If I could tag on to that too.
Okay. I would hope that we can really work together to focus funding on not just those teachers who will go through the National Board Certification process, because as we all should know that even with the additional money being offered, we do have some teachers where they just will, and staff, they won't be interested in making that commitment to go through that process. I really think with the change and what we're here talking about today, we as a school leaders, we all have a responsibility to focus on providing professional development to improve the craft of the teachers, providing that support where they feel like they're struggling. So I'm sharing this to say that as we move forward, I hope that as we're focusing on other areas, we find it that it's a priority to focus on surveying teachers, looking at evaluations, and then coming up with evidence-based strategies to specifically address those specific concerns for teachers. Because as you know, we can throw more money, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. It's always good to increase salary. But when you survey teachers, and the research shows that teachers really need support from the administration and the school leaders in developing their craft. So I think that's going to be a huge part of setting us above other counties when we're talking about attracting teachers, because not just the norm, we have to start thinking out the box and thinking about what we can do and be innovative to attract teachers. So I look forward to seeing in the future how well we can do in this area. So thank you.
Either Mr. Lowndes or Ms. Miller, can you talk about what Dr. Navarro did in putting together focus groups in each of the areas of the blueprint and including county staff in that as well?
Sure. So I was going to, I wanted to share that with one of the steering committees with Policy Area 2, with highly qualified and diverse teachers and leaders, this very subject has come up during their steering committee. And they have made several recommendations about creating this reflective practice. One of the things that the blueprint will require us to do is to change that teacher evaluation piece. Ms. Stewart, I'm glad that you brought it up, to really focus on improving our practice, that it's not, it is an evaluation, but it's really about a reflective piece, again, about, it's not about compliance, but it's about creating better habits for our students. So we do have 5 steering committees, and we have the 5 steering committees that are around each of the 5 policy areas. We have representation from various groups, including the Charles County government. We have people from our school representation. We have board members. We have organizations such as the Charles County NAACP. We have business groups. We have the EACC representation on these various steering committees. And the purpose of these steering committees is to really get input from various stakeholders in order to create a plan that is reflective of the students that we serve here in Charles County. Most of our steering committees meet once a month. We have 2 steering committees that are meeting twice a month because of upcoming deadlines. And we're truly appreciative of the commitment of all of our leads for our steering committees and also for those that attend. I mean, it is a big commitment. And we are taking into consideration all of the feedback that we're receiving as we begin to develop our blueprint plan.
Thank you.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stewart. Ms. McGraw?
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to share some information, if I may, a point of information regarding questions earlier about early childhood education and the pre-K programs. I happen to serve on the Governor's State Advisory Council for Early Childhood Education, and we just had our meeting last Wednesday. And one of the things I was going to share with my colleagues this morning was the fact that Maryland had received at $502 million in federal money, for grants, for child care stabilization and for child care development. And during the first round of those grants, $15,000 was awarded to licensed daycares. So the second round is coming, and we were told that level, there'll be $10,000 in grants available to licensed daycare providers. So I wanted to share that because if there are any licensed daycare providers that are listening, they might want to look into applying for those grants to help them get their programs either stabilized or up and running. So there is some state money via the federal government to help provide additional programs.
And MSDE has held webinar series for private child care providers as well. They have recorded those. And I know, as Mr. Lowndes had said, we have 2 upcoming Zoom meetings scheduled for Charles County private providers to get them the information too. So thank you for sharing that as well, Ms. McGraw.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Mr. Lucas, I do have a question. Do you know how many private childcare providers are up and running and ready for this program?
Ms. Miller?
We don't know specifically right now, but the requirements in order to get the state money are very rigorous. They need to, there needs to be a teacher that has a teacher certification in early childhood, and the assistants within the classroom also have to have that CDA or that associate's degree. They have to offer full day services. They also cannot teach during the 6 hours of school time. There cannot be any religious affiliation. We're hoping to get more information when we meet with our first round, our first Zoom meeting, which is scheduled for this week. But we are very concerned that it is likely we're going to have to ask for a waiver from MSDE for the 30%.
Thank you. I have another question.
Reference to the teacher salary increase. Are they going to be compared to a personal development plan? I know they're probably merit, but they're going to merit. Is it going to be comparing to in comparison to a personal development plan that's going to be constructed that could assist with future growth?
So the career ladder that we will be establishing is going to be based on merit. The $60,000 starting salary that we are mandated to start with, there is nothing else they have to do other than we have to provide the $60,000. But the career ladder will address merit versus longevity or tenure.
Okay, thank you.
And one other thing on the career ladder, any teachers that are hired, or any staff actually from July 2024 will automatically be on the career ladder, but those that are currently employed have a choice whether to get on the career day on their current pay scale. So there could be a period of time where we have 2 scales going.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Acton. Any other questions? Again, I'd like to thank all the commissioners. Mr. Collins, you have something?
When is our next work session?
So I was going to say, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and this is one of many joint sessions that we will have, as Ms. Acton indicated. And I would think in the next few months we can get together again. I think both our staffs can decide on what's the best time after the legislature ends and the budget is done. We can see exactly how much money we expect to receive and go forward from there. But again, I appreciate the fact that all of you are here today. Anything else from any board members? Okay. Well, thank you again for attending, and we will, not to put Ms. Acton on the spot, but we will have we'll say within the next 4 months, we'll have another meeting. How's that? Okay. Very good. Thank you all, and have a great day.
Thank you.